It's important to know that prostate cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer and the second leading cause of cancer death among men in our country, affecting not only them but their families as well. But there is good news on the horizon about prostate cancer, and September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Sam Salmon, CEO and founder of Mir Scientific, is excited with the news that his company has announced their breakthrough non-invasive urine test for prostate cancer, which is sure to advance in the diagnosis and treatment of this disease that affects 1 in 9 men. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Dr. Gene. How are you? Very nice to meet you.
I'm well, thank you. Great to meet you. So tell me, what is the current form of testing for prostate cancer? And why is there a need for a new type of test?
That's really a great question, Dr. Gene. So the current form of testing for prostate cancer, which is an age-related disease, so at some point every man over a certain age, is usually 45, would need to be tested. And that test is based on the PSA test, which is a blood test, and it's 40 years old. So just in context, imagine how few medical services or devices or drugs we take that are 40 years old and have such a consequential impact on our health and what we should do next if we are diagnosed with cancer.
And how does Mir Scientific Sentinel test compare with the current PSA test?
Great. So the PSA test, which is a tool to only determine if there's a suspicion of cancer, it cannot actually fully determine or confirm whether there is cancer, and even in the performance of being able to assure someone that they do not have cancer, it falls short. Because it only can determine if there's a suspicion of disease, a further procedure for those who have what's called an elevated PSA, which can be caused by many things other than cancer, a biopsy is required. And as you can imagine, a biopsy is a highly invasive procedure. It is a highly burdensome procedure for the patient. They have to take time off work, they have to leave their families, and it involves multiple needles that enter a very sensitive part of the human anatomy. And hopefully, if there is a tumor in their prostate, the biopsy intersects the tumor. That does not always happen. So even after all of the invasiveness and the burden of going through this whole procedure and quite a few what are called morbidities or complications thereafter, the biopsy may have missed a tumor. And that whole process is the current standard of care. Our goal is to replace that with the Sentinel test. The Sentinel test is a completely non-invasive test. It's based on a simple, multiple times a day urine test, urine specimen that we regularly provide in the course of our lives. And that urine, from our point of view, with our technology, has just an enormous riches of information, so much so that we're able to do what both PSA and biopsy would otherwise be able to do. And we're able to do it with accuracy levels that really give comfort to the patients and their doctors that they can take actionable and definitive decisions on what they should do next.
So are some men more at risk than others for prostate cancer?
Yes, the information that has been gleaned over time in multiple countries and in multiple types of societies, including single-payer systems where the government subsidizes all the cost of care, and systems like ours, which are a mix of different types of reimbursement and insurance. For all of those systems, populations that are socioeconomically disadvantaged are at greater risk. And unfortunately, as we have seen in many different aspects of our society, certain types of ethnic and racial backgrounds really have, even though they have the same quantity of disease in their population as a percentage, the burden of that disease in terms of mortality, which is death, and just the outcomes, which is the way they respond to treatment and the way they respond to the process of going through the whole health system, are unfortunately far, far poorer than the white population. So as you can imagine, minority populations and socioeconomic populations fare far worse, unfortunately. And one of our goals, of course, is to make our platform a tool by which everyone can have access to the best possible outcomes and be really much more easily engaged with the health system and much more likely to be proactive in their screening and in the follow-up to their screening process.
Well, speaking of that, how are you working towards making this test as available as possible for all men? And what about insurance and cost?
The mission of our company is to make our test as widely available as possible. In order to do so, we have engaged with a very broad set of constituents that really together comprise of how patients interact with the healthcare system. We have in this regard three goals. The first goal is that even within our current standards of care, in other words, those people who are currently participating in the healthcare system, when you combine those people, at best, it represents around 40% of all of the people who should be taking that proactive measure, which is a life-saving measure potentially. 60% are not engaged at all. So our first goal is to more broadly engage the population that should be screened and should be vigilant about this age-related and unfortunately insidious disease. The second goal is that those who do participate in the healthcare system really are not being best served by the tools that are available to what are really, as we have seen in all of our interactions with the medical community, just caring and brilliant physicians and urologists and primary care providers. They all want to do the best for their patients, but they have tools that may be inadequate, as we've heard about the PSA, which is old. So our second objective is to optimize the tools for the physicians and the doctors to really empower their care for the patients.
Wow. So where can we learn more about how to test?
Thank you, Dr. Jean. So we have a number of different clinical initiatives ongoing. We are reaching out both publicly and through our partners who are in the medical system and communities, and our goal is to both through them make a broad awareness of our tests and platform available, and particularly we're appreciative as to your bringing us to the attention of your community, which we really value during Prostate Cancer Month.
Thanks so much for talking with us about Mir, Sam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jean. Thank you for all that you do as well with your audience and with your viewers as well. It's much appreciated.